from where was this book written? Well, Revelation chapter 1, verse 9 tells us. It says, I, John, your brother and fellow partaker in the tribulation and kingdom and perseverance which are in Jesus, was on the island called Patmos. Now notice the geography here is literal. And that's true with every single piece of geography in the book of Revelation. It's always literal. Asia is literal. Patmos is literal. The 7 churches of Revelation 2 and 3 are literal places of geography. Armageddon, later on in the book, a valley in northern Israel, is literal. I'll be making the case that Babylon, Revelation 17 and 18, is literal. So John says, I wrote this book from the island of Patmos. Where was Patmos? Patmos, there's a map of it there, as you can see on the screen. We've got it circled. It's a little island off the coast of Asia Minor. Here's a second map showing you exactly where Patmos was. Patmos is the place where this book was written from. Patmos was off the west coast of Asia Minor. It was about 60 miles southwest of Ephesus. It's kind of a small rocky island in the Aegean Sea. It abounded in volcanic rock, and it's where the Roman Empire exiled people. And this is one of the reasons we believe that this was written not during the reign of Nero, but the reign of Domitian. Nero, who reigned in the 60s, would just cut people's heads off who were troublemakers, Christians being one of that group. Domitian had a different way of dealing with problem people. He would exile them to different islands. And so John fits that era very well. He kept speaking of another kingdom, the coming earthly kingdom of Jesus. And so Rome didn't like that. Rome looked at that as insurrection. Hey, we're the kingdom. What are you talking about? Another earthly kingdom. Putting this into modern day vernacular, they probably looked at John as some kind of domestic terrorist. And so Nero, when he dealt with people like that, would chop your head off, decapitate you. All the historical records indicate that. John, by contrast, during the reign of Domitian, Domitian reigned, late 80s, early 90s. I'll give you the dates on that in just a minute. Nero reigned in the 60s. Domitian would take people and he would maroon them on different islands that were problem people. And so this is where John was at the end of the reign of Domitian, at the end of the 1st century, being exiled on this little island off the coast of Asia Minor called Patmos. Eusebius, the great church historian, makes reference to this. Very early on in church history, Eusebius, in his ecclesiastical history, looks back to where John wrote the book of Revelation from, and he writes, and they even indicated the time accurately, relating that in the 15th year of Domitian, Flavia Domitilla, who was the niece of Flavius Clemens, one of the many consuls at Rome at that time, was banished with many others to the island of Pontia as a testimony of Christ. Now, what Eusebius is saying here is this is how Domitian dealt with what he called rebels, or considered rebels. He marooned them on various islands. John, being considered a problem person to Rome in the reign of Domitian, was similarly exiled, except he was exiled to Patmos. Tertullian, in his prescription against heretics, says this concerning the location from where the book of Revelation came from, where the Apostle John was first plunged unhurt into boiling oil and thence remitted to his island exile. So this seems to indicate that they tried to kill John by boiling him in oil, but God supernaturally kept him alive. John, I guess, was a very stubborn person. He wouldn't even die when he was supposed to die. And so what do you do with a guy like that? Well, you put him out on a desert, not a desert island, but an island prison, and that's where John was. He was exiled on this little island called the island of Patmos. This is how Domitian dealt with problem people. John, I would think, probably thought he's out of God's will, maybe feeling sorry for himself, because of his fate. The text doesn't say that. I'm just sort of putting myself in John's circumstances. And yet that's exactly where God wanted John, because it's on that island that he would receive this final vision, not multiple visions, but a singular vision that does not contradict, but harmonizes with prior scriptural material called the Book of Revelation. And so where was this book written from? It was written from the island of Patmos.